Jeremy Windemaller, trial manager here at Walters Gardens, and today we're going to talk a little bit about salvia. Now there's a couple different planting methods for salvia. The first method that I really recommend is bare root. This is a grade 1 bare root plant that can be planted in spring for a quick turn crop time of around 6 to 8 weeks. And as far as planting level goes with bare root, you want to have the crown even with the soil line. So where the roots meet the growth stems there, that's the point where you want to have even with that soil line in the container. Now with bare root, a lot of customers have asked us, can they trim the roots to fit the pot? And since these are a fibrous root type plant, that's totally fine. Go ahead and trim them to fit the container that you desire. We don't recommend going anything smaller than a trade 1 gallon container with bare root, as it really doesn't fit that style plant. And the other option for planting are our 72 count plugs, which we really recommend to plant in late summer, as they require a little bit more time for bulking. You're going to have around 8 to 10 weeks finish time on a 72 count plug into a trade 1 gallon pot. For a quart program, we usually recommend to use a small plug like a 72 count plug to go into a smaller container like that, as bare root tends to be too large and you'd have to trim too many roots off to fit in the container. Next, we're going to talk about the different types of salvias. There are two different types of salvias that we sell here at Walters Gardens. And the first salvia that I'm going to talk about are the Nemorosa varieties, which tend to be smaller flowers but have more flowers to the plant. The leaves tend to be a little on the smaller side too, compared to the other type, which is called Pratensis. They tend to have the larger flowers, larger leaves. But the one thing about the Pratensis is they don't seem to bloom quite as long as what the Nemorosa types do. So some general cultural information to remember is when you're planting a bare root plant, plant it into a cooler environment around 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit with good light levels. Salvias generally are light to moderate feeders, so they require modest amounts of fertilizer. So we generally feed these around 50 to 75 parts per million constant liquid feed at each watering. Otherwise you could put a light to medium rate using a controlled release fertilizer. As far as pH goes, you want a pH of around 5.8 to 6.2 with an EC level of around 2 to 3 using the pour through method. Salvia do not require vernalization to flower, but it is definitely beneficial. When you see a nice full plant like these here, these are vernalized and these are all from bare root. So I definitely think that's the best method to go with. As far as moisture goes, you want to utilize a media that has good moisture retention to it, as salvia likes to have consistent moderate moisture. And as far as forcing goes, salvia do best being forced under long day conditions. And just to touch a little bit on pests and diseases, most pests that you see would be either white flies, spider mites, aphids. Those are probably the most common pests you see. Sometimes in outdoor production you'll see some caterpillars that may attack these plants. So we recommend to scout on a regular basis and treat as necessary. Some diseases to watch for are crown and root rots, and that's typically seen if the plants have been grown too cold or too wet for too long a period of time. So that's where sharp drainage comes into good practices for growing salvia. Some other plant diseases that you might see would be powdery mildew, as well as Botrytis. Botrytis tends to form in the lower portion of the plant where there's a lot of dense growth and maybe some dead growth in there. You want to make sure the plants stay clean, well spaced, have good airflow through the greenhouse, and the proper growing conditions will usually save you from a lot of headaches. And again, this is Jeremy Windemaller with Walters Gardens. Thanks for watching our video on salvias.